Hello. So today we're going to talk about true crime, and what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about some of the best true crime books. And when I say that, this is really just the stuff that survived the multiple purges of my bookshelves and are still on my shelves. And so that means some of these are a little gimmicky. Like I have them because they're gimmicky, and I don't want to let go of them. I do want to give an honorary mention to Jeff Gwynne, who I no longer have on my shelves at all, but who is a phenomenal true crime writer. He wrote Manson, the Jonestown book, Bonnie and Clyde book. I'll put pictures up here. I've read all three of them. They're all great. I don't own any of them anymore. But let's go again, as always. These are in reverse alphabetical order because I just went around on my shelves. And the first one is the first two are really gimmicky ones. And so the first one is Will You Die For Me? This is Tex Watson's book. Tex Watson, the Manson guy. And what's fun about this book, it does have a map of Spawn Ranch right up at the beginning here. I actually used this quite a bit when I was writing my book Spawn, so that was fun. But this is basically Tex Watson talking about his own life and what his life was like leading up to the murders, and then how he found God in prison, like all these people do. But no, like I said, this is a gimmicky one, and I have a couple of those in here, but I just like them. I don't want to let go of it. It's a nice hardcover edition. This was originally $7.95. That's insane. It's a nice hardcover edition. It's got pictures, and it is a fun, primary source for that whole thing. The next one is another gimmicky one, and this one I actually found at a used bookstore. A used bookstore in the town I moved to right after graduating college, and I didn't buy it the first time I saw it. I was like, oh man. But I went back there like a couple weeks later, it was still there, and that is If I Did It. This is the O.J. Simpson book. This is a book that O.J. Simpson wrote about if he had killed Nicole Brown Simpson, this is how he would have done it. And the Goldman family, who were the family of the guy that he didn't murder, they got their hands on this, and then they are the ones who get all the like OJ didn't get any of the royalties or anything. And if you notice, you got a very tiny if, and then I did it. Again, this is a gimmicky one. I did read it, but this was a gimmicky one. I had I saw it, I had to get it. At the bottom here, got the Goldman family views this book as his confession. So yeah. This next one is another. We've got our third killer written book in a row. And this one's kind of less gimmicky. This one I do think is genuinely good. And that is the Panzram Journal of Murder. So we've got Panzram's journals in here, as well as some other supplementary material. Don't mind that. So Carl Panzram was a American serial killer from late 1800s, early 1900s. And he's a little bit regional for me personally. He's from East Grand Forks, Minnesota, which is right across the border from Grand Forks, North Dakota. He spent some time burning down churches in North Dakota when he was a teenager. Don't buy my book, Carl and Jimmy, but that's what it's about. But this is Panzram was an interesting one because he was so clearly this is a person that you could very clearly see if his life had been different, he would not have done the things that he did. And also, the man, especially for somebody who really got no formal education whatsoever, beautiful writer. Oh my God, his writing is very nice. It's very voicey, but it's very clear, and it's so fun. It's so well written. This book is so well written. And I think it's definitely, it's a fun one. It's a really, I'm trying to be one of those true crime people that's all it's all kind of gushy, but and I try not to be the kind of person that has a favorite serial killer, except for I do, and it's Carl Panzram, there's that. I believe that is the last book I have written by a killer in here. Everything else, I have a couple written by people who are close to events happening, but none of the others are written by killers, and that may prove to be a controversial statement. But anyway, the next one I have The Man with the Candy by Jack Wolfson. And this is about Dave Corll. Not Dave Corll. Oh my god, Dean Corll. This is about Dean Corll. And the main reason why I did really keep this is because there's so few books written about Dean Corll. Corll was along the same lines as a Gacy, and Gacy was actually just a little bit after Corll, and he really kind of yanked the crown away. Now everybody's talking about Gacy, and Corll was arguably, you know, they're actually pretty on par with each other. The most interesting thing about Dean Corll to me is his accomplices and how he ended up getting caught. But this book does kind of, it does detail, you know, Corll's early life, and it does detail how he ended up getting caught. It details some of the victims. It's a very quick read. It's very short, but it's a good time. This next one is again one that is close to a victim, but not about a killer. It's not close to a victim, close to a situation, but not about a killer. And that is The Last Victim by Jason Moss. And so Jason Moss was this kid who, I believe in like the late 90s, early 2000s, he started writing to serial killers and cult leaders, and he was getting responses because he was giving them kind of like what they wanted to hear. And the one that he became the most entrenched in was John Wayne Gacy. And it didn't hurt that this was like a conventionally attractive male college student, and so I think Gacy, you know, had a predilection to liking him. And so this is kind of his book that he wrote. He did kill himself. This kid did, and that's why this is called really The Last Victim. He counted himself really as Gacy's last victim, and this is, again, it's kind of a gimmicky one, but it's an interesting look in it. And then this next one, these next two cover the same case, and they are just chock full of tabs because I used them when I was writing The Crucifixion of Greg Knox. And so we're talking about West Memphis 3. So first I do have Devil's Knot by Mara Leveritt, which is a phenomenal piece of work. This is just a really good piece of true crime. We really go in depth about so much. Mara Leveritt is just a fantastic writer. I do also have Dark Spell, which she wrote about Jason Baldwin's time in prison, which is also a great piece of work. I do want to read The Boys on the Tracks, which was her first thing that she wrote, but no, these are both, they're very good, they're very, very well written. Obviously both of mine are all tabbed up. And if we are talking about this whole thing, I do also want to bring up Life After Death by Damien Echols. And this is where I was talking, like, might be a bit controversial when I say that I had no more killer books on here, because if it wasn't clear, I don't believe that the West Memphis 3 were guilty. I think that there's just a lot that just doesn't make sense with that whole idea. But this is Damien Echols' book, and this is and I also used to write Crucifixion of Greg Knox. But this one, Echols is a great writer. He is just such a good writer. His syntax, his diction is just impeccable. And you might think it's a little bit flowery. He's a little bit purple prosy sometimes, but there are some things that he wrote in here, some scenes, some ways that he described things that were just, you were there. You were there. You were seeing what he was seeing, and it's a really good book. I actually taught this when I was teaching high school. In American Lit, which was juniors and seniors. This was one of the books that we read. Well, the class there weren't a lot of readers in that class, so I don't think a lot of them read the book. But that's good. All right, now we've got Dave Cullen. I've got two of his books. I've got both Columbine and Parkland. I'm going to talk about Parkland first. So Parkland was his book about the Parkland shooting, obviously. And what I liked about this book was that it wasn't so much about the shooting and the lead up to the shooting and why the shooting happened. It was about the victims of the shooting and the aftermath of the shooting. And I think not once in this book is the shooter's name mentioned, which I think was very good. It was a very good book. Columbine, on the other hand, is very much about Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris. And oh my god. I know I say I didn't have any other killer books, but I do have the journals of Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris. So there's that. Don't ask. So this is very much, it goes into detail, goes very in depth. This book, there are a lot of people who don't like this book because they do think that Cullen was a little bit too harsh on Eric and not harsh enough on Dylan. However, all the people who I've seen who say this are Columbiners. So like maybe their opinion isn't that valid when it comes to this, you know? But no, Columbine I remember was I don't remember Columbine because I was born in 1997, but it was the first true crime case that really kind of captured my attention and like horrified me. I remember being in college and like looking through a Columbine site and just like glued to the computer, like feeling awful about everything. So yeah, this is a good book. It is. It's thick, and does it maybe, you know, absolve Dylan Klebold of some of his, you know, active part in this? Yes, it does. But I don't think it's too harsh on Eric Harris. Yeah. I would like to mention also A Mother's Reckoning, which is a very tragic book. I did read that book. I do think it's a good book. It made me bawl my eyes out. And that book is also, people say, is too soft on Dylan Klebold, but it's like his mom wrote it. So you can't really expect her to be as harsh as somebody else might be. But yeah. Also when it comes to movies that are based on Columbine, there are 1,000 of them, but the best one is Zero Day. All right, this next one is more of a history thing, and I didn't include any of my French Revolution stuff, even though arguably I could. But I figure if Last Podcast on the Left did an episode about it, I can include a book about it. I really, really hope that they never do one about the French Revolution, because I know I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to find everything that's wrong with it. I'm going to be just mad. But that is The Indifferent Stars Above by Daniel James Brown. It's about the Donner Party. This is a great book. It's really, really good. I will forever hate, what's it called? Oh, there's one chapter. Christmas feasts, and you know what they're eating for Christmas. You know. This is really well done. It's really well put together. It's very well written. It's accessible. It's a good time. This last one is the most recent one that I read, and this one really did affect me in a lot of ways. This is another one that's from somebody who's close to the tragedy, but wasn't an active part in the tragedy. So it's not a killer book, but this is by people who knew these people who were involved in this cult. And as a teacher, so the people who wrote this were teachers of these high schoolers who were a part of this cult and ended up going down and, you know, killing themselves. You know what I'm talking about now. And that's and then they were gone. Teenagers of People's Temple, from high school to Jonestown. As a teacher, this was absolutely terrible to read. And by that I mean it was great. I think it might be one of my best, as of right now, it's one of my top books of the year. Granted, it's June, but it might hold itself out. No, this is about, it's about the kids, and when they were in San Francisco, all these kids went to this like non-traditional high school, and these two, Judy Velar and Ron Cabral, were teachers at this non-traditional high school, and they really liked these kids, and these kids, like, they were such well-behaved kids, and they were a little bit guarded, but like they started to kind of get involved. They were playing baseball, they were having such a good time, and then you know what happened with Jonestown. It was really, really heartbreaking. We did get a little bit too much history on the school, I think. I realized that we wanted to like set some groundwork so that we could see what kind of place we were dealing with, but it was a little bit too much, I think. But no, this was heartbreaking in a lot of ways. And then it did go into like everything that happened in Jonestown, and you really got to know these people, and it was, and at the end it talked about Jim Jones's 3 sons, all of whom survived. And only one of them was his biological son, but the other 2 were his sons as well, some of his adoptive sons. And there's a picture in here. Yeah, the Jones brothers, Tim, Jimmy, and Stephen, who were just, like, they all lived, and they all, like, talked about how this affected them, and how it really kind of scarred them for the rest of their lives, because I don't know if any of them are dead at this point. They could be, just based on age, but I don't know. I'll maybe put up. But no, it was a heartbreaking book, and it's definitely, I think, especially as a teacher, this was, like, really hard, because I do teach elementary now, but I taught high school for 3 years, and just thinking about, like, yeah, it's an intense one. But yeah, those are some true crime books. These are the ones that I have kept around. Obviously, I've read a bunch of other true crime books, and I have enjoyed a lot of them. My Friend Dahmer is a good time. I actually read Sex, Drugs, and Cocoa Puffs by Chuck Klosterman, and he talks briefly in that book about how he has a couple of friends that have known serial killers, and one of them he talks about is Dirk Backdorf, who wrote My Friend Dahmer because he went to high school with Dahmer. But that's a good time. What else have I read? Anne Rule is solid. The Stranger Beside Me is, of course, a standout work because she knew Ted Bundy, and I find that when we're reading true crime stuff like that, the people that actually knew these people tend to produce the best work. But even her other books too are pretty good. Like which I've read a couple. If You Really Love Me, I've read some of her. She has like little case file ones where they're like little novellas almost. So there are a bunch of them in a book. She's good. She's solid. Yeah. I've got a good chunk of the book. I'm actually reading one right now, Dangerous Attraction. But yeah, that's that. Those are some of the best when it comes to true crime, I think. And a lot of these too, the human element in these is very present. Or they're just gimmicky killer books. Because I will admit that I will fuck with some gimmicky killer books. Just because I'm just a little bit of a creep like that. You know, like yes, I have the Tex Watson book. Yes, I have the O.J. Simpson book. Yes, I have the Columbine Killers journals. Yes, I do. But, you know, perspective. What do we have? I don't know what I have perspective. But yeah, that is that. I've got to put these books away now. Goodbye.